Welcome back to the exciting book of Genesis. Hallelujah. All right, we're going to be continuing on with chapter 16. So, can I have my first reader read Genesis 16, 1 through 5, please?
Now Sarai, Abram's wife, bare him no children, and she had a handmaid, an Egyptian, whose name was Hagar. And Sarai said unto Abram, Behold now, Yahuwah hath restrained me from bearing. I pray thee, go unto my maid. It may be that I may obtain children by her. And Abram hearkened to the voice of Sarai. And Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar, her maid, the Egyptian, after Abram had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan, and gave her to her husband Abram to be his wife. And he went unto Hagar, and she conceived. And when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was despised in her eyes. And Sarai said unto Abram, My wrong be upon thee. I have given my maid unto thy bosom. And when she saw that she had conceived, I was despised in her eyes. Yeshua, judge between me and thee.
Hallelujah. Okay, so here it is. Sarai, Abram's wife, bear him no children. Now, they knew that the promise that was given to them that they should have a seed, and that their seed should be as the dust of the earth. Amen. But here it is. They've been dwelling out there in the wilderness or in the land for 10 years. 10 years, and yet they still haven't had a seed. You know, so I guess by this time they were getting a little bit on the desperate side. You know, seeing that Sarai, she was about 80 years old during this time. I guess she figured, well, you know, me having a kid, that's a wrap. So if we're going to have a seed, then it must be this way. See, and this is very important to know and understand. Yah's ways is not as our ways.
Right.
You know, he works in mysterious ways. Amen. His ways is above our ways. You know, now, yeah, it seems, you know, I can, you know, understand where Sarai was, or Sarai, whichever one you prefer. I can understand where she was coming from, and I can understand that, hey, it's been 10 years, and, you know, hey, maybe, and he promised that we were going to have a seed, you know, so he must meant this way. He must meant for you to go into my handmaid Hagar. That got to be it. I'm too old to have kids. I don't see what other option that we have. So she asked Abram to go into her handmaid Hagar so that she may be able to obtain children through her. And Abram hearkened unto the voice of Sarai. Bad idea. Bad idea. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad idea for men to listen to their wives. I'm just saying this in particular was a bad idea. I mean, I don't want to step on no toes, man, you know. But now, here it is. You can rationalize, and you can, you know, see, you know, how they came to this conclusion. You know, but did you catch something? You know, in verse 5, you know, afterwards, you know, after she done had the kid, and she seen that she was despised in Hagar's eyes, you know, then she tells her husband, my wrong be upon thee. See, this is why, you know, Yah, for all you husbands that Yah made the leader, this is why you listen to Yah first and foremost. Right. Amen?
Amen.
You know, I'm not saying don't listen to your wife. I'm just saying listen to Yah first and foremost. You know, what Abram should have done is he should have went and asked Yah, hey, is this what you meant?
Exactly. Yeah.
This how you pictured this to go? Is this your will? And then he would have told him, right? You know, but that's not what he did. You know, and so, you know, her wrong was upon him. And she say, because she seen that she was despised in the eyes of Hagar after she done gave him to him, you know. And to understand this, you know, this was a very big deal back in that day, you know, culturally speaking. So, you know, it's very easy to see, you know, how this would have came about. Okay, let me have my next reader read verses 6 through 11, please.
But Abram said unto Sarai, Behold, thy maid is in thy hand. Do to her as it pleaseth thee. And when Sarai dealt hardly with her, she fled from her face. And the angel of Yahuwah found her by a fountain of water in the wilderness, by the fountain in the way to Shur. And he said, Hagar, Sarai's handmaid, whence camest thou? And whither wilt thou go? And she said, I flee from the face of my mistress Sarai. And the angel of Yahuwah said unto her, Return to thy mistress, and submit thyself under her hands. And the angel of Yahuwah said unto her, I will multiply thy seed exceedingly, that it shall not be numbered for multitude. And the angel of Yahuwah said unto her, Behold, thou art with child, and shalt bear a son, and shall call his name Ishmael, because Yahuwah hath heard thy affliction.
Hallelujah. Okay, so now Abram wasn't just dumb. You know, he wasn't that crazy. He after Sarai came to him with that, you know, he didn't jump in the middle of that. He said, Behold, thy maid, she your maid, you know, she's in your hand. Do as it pleaseth thee, you know. I'm not about to get into that. And so it says in Sarai, she dealt hardly with her, and she fled from her face. Okay, she went by the fountain in the way to Shur. Shur means a wall, in case you're wondering. You know, and so she called herself, well, you know, my master, you know, she just jealous, you know, because here it is, I done conceived, and she can't, and, you know, and now, you know, I know I probably was acting out of order, but, you know, she didn't have to be that hard on me, I'm out of here, you know. And the angel Yahuwah said unto her in verse 9, Return to thy mistress, and submit thyself under her hands. I bet you that was a real humbling point. Amen. You know, and that just goes to show us that, you know, hey, we oftentimes have to reflect, have to look in the mirror, you know, and reflect and see, you know, are we doing right? You know, sometimes stuff happens to us and it's a result of our wrongdoing. You know, so we can't just be quick to run from the situation, you know, or run from the scenario because it, you know, the discipline may be warranted.
Yeah.
Amen.
Amen.
You know, don't tell me you've never done nothing and, you know, and got what you deserve. You know. Now, he says, Return and submit thyself to her hands, and said, I will multiply thy seed exceedingly, that it shall not be numbered for multitude. And he told her that she was pregnant, and she's going to bear a son, and even told her what to call the son, even Ishmael. Now, Ishmael, or Ishmael, means El will hear. El will hear, or heard of El. Okay? All right, let me have my next reader read verses 12 through 16.
And he will be a wild man. His hand will be against every man, and every man's hand against him. And he shall dwell in the presence of all his brethren. And she called the name of Yahuwah that spake unto her, Thou Elohim seest me. For she said, Have I also here looked after him that seeth me? Whoever the well was, wherefore the well was called Bir Lahairoi. Behold, it is between Kadesh and Bered. And Hagar bare Abram a son, and Abram called his son's name, which Hagar bare, Ishmael. And Abram was 86 years old when Hagar bare Ishmael to Abram.
Hallelujah. All right, so The angel tells her she's going to have a kid, call his name Ishmael, and tells her what kind of man that he's going to be, that he's going to be a wild man. That his hand will be against every man, and every man's hand against him. You know, and, you know, so she says, okay, you know, and she recognizes, hey, y'all speaking to her, and she called the place Be'er La Airoi. Be'er La Airoi, which means well of a living one, my seer, or well of a living one that sees me. Okay, and the place was betwixt Kadesh and Bered. Now, Kadesh speaks to a quasi-holiness. You know, something that's look holy, act holy, but not really holy. Amen? Amen. And hell, Bered means hell. Now, hell is symbolic of judgment. You know, so here it is, we're seeing that, you know, she's at a place betwixt quasi-holiness and judgment. Amen. And she was running because she was being judged. You know, that's the whole reason she ran away. So she goes back, and the prophecy is fulfilled. Hagar bare Abram a son, and Ishmael, she called him Ishmael. It says, and Abram was 86 years old. And this is why I love numbers, you know, in scripture, because they're always, you know, well, usually, you know, they give you some insight into the situation. You know, 80. 80 speaks to mouth. It speaks to the mouth or speech. 6 is the number of man. You know, so you put it together, you have, you know, man's mouth. And this is how Ishmael came to be, through man's mouth. See, because Abram listened to his wife's mouth, and that's how Ishmael came to be. You know, he didn't just listen to Yah's mouth, he listened to man's mouth. Now, you always can get in trouble by listening to man's mouth. When man's speech, you know, even though it may sound good, it may sound right, you never trust man's mouth or man's speech. You always trust Yah's speech. Amen? You trust what Yah say. You know, so there's going to be times when man will say this, that, and the other, and you'll think, you know, oh, that sounds great, you know, and oh, that explains this or that explains that, you know, but if you can't find it supported or validated in scripture, then you have to throw that out. Yeah. You know, so don't listen to man's mouth. Right. Listen to Yah's mouth. Hallelujah. You know, and it says Hagar bare Ishmael to Abram. Okay? Now, seeing that was so short, we're going to continue on to Genesis 17. Amen? Yeah. So, Genesis chapter 17, we're going to keep it moving. Let me have my next reader read Genesis 17, 1 through 8, please.
And when Abram was 90 years old and 9, Yahuwah appeared to Abram and said unto him, I am the Almighty Elohim. Walk before me and be thou perfect. And I'll make my covenant between me and thee, and will multiply thee exceedingly. And Abram fell on his face, and Elohim talked with him, saying, As for me, behold, my covenant is with thee, and thou shalt be a father of many nations. Neither shall thy name any more be called Abram, but thy name shall be Abraham. For a father of many nations have I made thee, and I'll make thee exceedingly fruitful, and I will make nations of thee, and kings shall come out of thee. And I will establish my covenant between me and thee, and thy seed after thee, in their generations, for an everlasting covenant, to be a Elohim unto thee, and to thy seed after thee. And I'll give unto thee and to thy seed after thee the land wherein thou art a stranger, all the land of Canaan, and for an everlasting possession, and I will be their Elohim.
Hallelujah. Okay, so verse 1 tells us, that this occurred when Abram was 90 years old and 9. The number 90 speaks to the righteousness of Elohim. It speaks to a devout man. The number 9 speaks to an upright man. So Abram being 99 shows us that Abram had reached a point to where he was righteous and upright. Amen. Okay, now it says during this time that Yahuwah appeared to him. And he told him, even as ye are, walk before me and be thou perfect. And I will make my covenant between me and thee, and will multiply thee exceedingly. And he's told that, thou shalt be a father of many nations. Now his name already means exalted father. So he's already an exalted father. Amen. But Yah is saying, I'm going to make you a father of many nations. So much so that no more shall ye be called exalted father, Abram, but thy name shall be Abraham, which means father of many nations. For a father of many nations have I made thee. And I will make thee exceedingly fruitful, and I will make nations of thee, and kings shall come out of thee. And I will establish my covenant between me and thee and thy seed after thee. And we're told that a few more times, and thy seed after thee, and thy seed after thee. Amen. So, the point that I want to really hone in on is that this covenant came when Abram, when the exalted father, when Abram had become 90 and 9. That is when he had become righteous and upright. Good things come when you're righteous and upright. Amen. I want you to know good things come when you're righteous and upright. Let me have my next reader read verses 9 through 15, please.
And Elohim said unto Abraham, Thou shalt keep my covenant, therefore, thou and thy seed after thee in their generations. This is my covenant, which you shall keep between me and you and thy seed after thee. Every man child among you shall be circumcised, and you shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall be a token of the covenant betwixt me and you. And he that is 8 days old shall be circumcised among you, every man child in your generations, he that is born in the house or bought with money of any stranger, which is not of thy seed. And he that is born in thy house, and he that is bought with thy money, must needs be circumcised. And my covenant shall be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. And the uncircumcised man-child whose flesh of his foreskin is not circumcised, that soul shall be cut off from his people. He hath broken my covenant. And Elohim said unto Abraham, As for Sarai thy wife, thou shalt not call her name Sarai, but Sarah shall be her name.
Hallelujah. Okay, so verse 9 tells us Elohim said unto Abraham, Thou shalt keep my covenant. He tells him, this is my covenant. That ye shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskins, and this shall be a token, an oath. That's the word token, a signal, a sign, a distinguishing mark of the covenant betwixt me and you. And he says, and he that is 8 days old shall be circumcised among you. And he says, my covenant shall be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. Okay? And he says, the uncircumcised man, whose flesh is his foreskin, is not circumcised, that soul should be cut off from his people. He hath broken my covenant. So now, I want you to notice that, now he says unto Abraham that your wife name, it shall not be Sarai no more. Sarai means princess, a princess or ruler. But Sarah, which also can mean princess, but also can mean queen. So she went from a princess to a queen. Amen. You know, Abram went from an exalted father to a father of many nations. You know, so now we have a father of many nations and we have a queen on our hands. Amen. Let me have my next reader read verses 16 through 22.
And I will bless her and give thee a son also of her. Yea, I will bless her, and she will be a mother of nations. Kings of people shall be of her. Then Abraham fell upon his face and laughed and said in his heart, Shall a child be born to him that is 100 years old? And shall Sarah that is 90 years old bear? And Abraham said unto Elohim, Oh, that Ishmael might live before thee. And Elohim said, Sarah thy wife shall bear thee a son indeed, and thou shalt call his name Isaac. And I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his seed after him. And as for Ishmael, I have heard thee. Behold, I have blessed him, and will make him fruitful, and will multiply him exceedingly. 12 princes shall he beget, and I will make him a great nation. But my covenant will I establish with Isaac, which Sarah shall bear unto thee at this set time in the next year. And he left off talking with him, and Elohim went up from Abraham.
Hallelujah. Okay, so here it is. We see in verse 16, it says, I will bless her and give thee a son also of her. Now, I know when Yah said that, I know, Abraham, he thought it was a joke. He says, yes, I will bless her and she shall be a mother of nations. So she done went from being a princess or a ruler to being a queen and a mother of nations. Amen. Now, it says when Abraham heard this, that he fell on his face and he laughed, but at least he had sense enough to laugh in his heart. He ain't laugh out loud to Yah, So he laughed in his heart and was thinking to himself, shall a child be born unto him that is 100 years old? And shall Sarah that is 90 years old bear? Because when he get 100, she gonna be 90, and talking about we're gonna be having a child, really? And Abraham, I guess trying to help Yah out, said unto Elohim, oh, that Ishmael might live before thee. Now I want you to consider that Ishmael, he's about 13 now. He's about 13 at this time. So, he's been around. I know, like, we just go straight off into next section, but I want you to know that like about 13 years done went by. So that's important to understand. And he said, and Elohim responded and said, listen here. No, he didn't say that. But he said, Sarah thy wife shall bear thee a son indeed. It's going to happen, just like I'm telling you. And thou shalt call his name Isaac, which means laughter. But not laughter like I'm happy, but laughter like I'm mocking you because I don't believe it. And even as he was doing in his heart. And Yah was just letting them know, yeah, I knew you was laughing in your heart too. He says, I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his seed after him. And as for Ishmael, I have heard thee. I've heard your prayer. I'm going to do that. Behold, I have blessed him, and will make him fruitful, and will multiply him exceedingly. 12 princes shall he beget, and I will make him a great nation. But my covenant will I establish with Isaac, which Sarah shall bear unto thee at this set time in the next year. And he left off talking with him, and Elohim went up from Abraham. Now, this is a very important passage, very important indeed. So one of the things I want to point out is that concerning Ishmael, he's going to make him fruitful, and he says, 12 princes shall he beget. Just put that on the shelf for a minute. But 12 princes shall he beget. Somebody else, had 12 princes. Just put that on the shelf for a second. Let me have my next reader read verses 23 through 27.
And Abraham took Ishmael his son, and all that were born in his house, and all that were bought with his money, every male among the men of Abraham's house, and circumcised the flesh of their foreskin in the selfsame day, as Elohim had said unto him. And Abraham was 90 years old and 9 when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. And Ishmael, his son, was 13 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. And the selfsame day was Abraham circumcised, with Ishmael his son, and all the men of his house, born in the house, and brought with money of the stranger, were circumcised with him.
Hallelujah. Okay, now it's interesting aspects here that we need to take a look at. First of all, Abram took Ishmael, his son, and everyone that was in his house, everyone that he had brought with money, all the males, and he circumcised them. Now, he was 99 when he was circumcised, when he entered into this covenant with Elohim. He was 99, when he entered into this covenant. We talked about 90 representing the righteousness of Elohim and a devout man, and 9 representing an upright man. So we're talking about a righteous, upright man. But Ishmael, when he entered into the covenant, he was 13. 13 is the number of rebellion. So what we see here is we see a picture of Ishmael entering into covenant with Elohim while he was yet in rebellion, or while he was rebellious. Amen. That's the spiritual pic that's being shown here, or that's being painted here. And this is when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. All right. Now, in the scheme of things, let us consider the spiritual counterpart of Ishmael, whose mother also gave birth to him while in bondage, became a wild man, was heard of Yah, and entered into covenant with Yah while yet being rebellious. There's another person or entity that aligns with this spiritual Ishmael.
Cam. Don't go there. Go there.
All right. So, and I'm going to let you know who it is. It's Israel. And you're like, huh? Yes, Israel. Israel is the spiritual counterpart of Ishmael. Natural Israel, I should say. And I'm going to try to paint this picture that Scripture paints. I'm going to try to fill in some color to it so that you can see it more clearly. So we're going to take a little sidebar for me to do that, and I pray that you're able to extrapolate this picture I'm trying to show you, because it's a very important one to help you understand the plan of Elohim. So this is my sidebar. I searched hard for that bar. Okay, so we're going to start off with Genesis 13, 14 through 16. It says, And Yahuwah said unto Abram, after that Lot was separated from him, Lift up now thine eyes, and look from the place where thou art, northward, southward, eastward, and westward. For all the land which thou seest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed forever. And I will make thy seed as the dust of the earth, so that if a man can number the dust of the earth, then shall thy seed also be numbered. Okay, so now, also, I want you to consider Genesis 15, 3 through 5. It says, And Abram said, Behold, to me thou hast given no seed. You told me, back in the day, see, this was back in the day in verse 13 compared to where he was in chapter 15. You told me back in the day that, hey, when I came out from amongst my father's house and my countrymen and my kindred, you told me that you'll make my seed as the dust of the earth. But here in verse 3 he says, But behold, to me thou hast given no seed. And lo, one born in my house is my heir. And he says, And behold, the word of Yahuwah came unto him, saying, This shall not be thine heir, but he that shall come forth out of thine own bowels shall be thine heir. And verse 5, And he brought him forth abroad and said, Look now toward heaven, and tell the stars, if thou be able to number them. And he said unto him, So shall thy seed be. Now, what I'd like you to see is that within these two very different passages is that Yah has actually made two very different promises. Can you see that he made a promise that the seed will be as the dust of the earth, in which no man can number? And he also made a promise that the seed will be as the stars of the heaven. Now, these two seeds are as twins. Even as natural Israel and spiritual Israel, if you would. They have many similarities, but also many differences. Likewise, they speak to two very different covenants. And that's what we're going to get into. The first covenant, we see in Genesis 15, 17, and 18, it says, "And it came to pass that when the sun went down and it was dark, behold, a smoking furnace and a burning lamp that passed between those pieces." And it's talking about the animals that he was told to split in half and had the lamp go between them. It says, "In the same day, Yahuwah made a covenant with Abram, saying, Unto thy seed have I given this land from the river of Egypt," or Mitzrayim, unto the great river, the river Euphrates. Okay? Okay, now let us jump to Genesis 16, 7 through 12. And let's take a look at this. It says, "And the angel of Yahuwah found her by a fountain of water in the wilderness, by the fountain in the way to shore. And he said, Hagar, Sarai's maid, whence camest thou? And whither wilt thou go? And she said, I flee from the face of my mistress Sarai. And the angel of Yahuwah said unto her, Return to thy mistress, and submit thyself under her hands. And the angel of Yahuwah said unto her, I will multiply thy seed exceedingly, that it shall not be numbered for multitude. And the angel of Yahuwah said unto her, Behold, thou art with child, and shalt bear a son, and shall call his name Ishmael, or Ishmael, because Yahuwah hath heard thy affliction. And he will be a wild man, and his hand will be against every man, and every man's hand against him. And he shall dwell in the presence of all his brethren." Amen? All right, so what I want to point out to you is that, first of all, verse 18 tells us explicitly what this was so that there's no mistake about it. Amen? It says, in the same day, Yahuwah made a what with Abram? A covenant. This was a covenant. And this is important to see because this is like the first covenant, or the old covenant as we like to call it today. Amen? Okay, so this is a picture of that covenant that preceded, these events. Because, Yah tells the end from the beginning. Amen? Right. Okay, so this is a picture of that covenant. And we see that it truly was a covenant, and it tells us it was a covenant. Now, it was made with who? Abram. Okay, Abram or Abram. Okay, so now, the reason I threw 16 in there is because I wanted you to also see that it was not only made with Abram alone, but also with Hagar, Sarai's maid. This covenant was made with Abram and Hagar, Sarai's maid. And hence we see the promise, again, I will multiply thy seed exceedingly, and they shall not be numbered for multitude. Behold, thou art with child, and you should call his name Ishmael. Why? Because he will be heard of Elohim. Because Elohim will hear him. Amen? Now, and because Yahuwah hath heard thy affliction. And he will be a wild man, and his hand will be against every man, and every man's hand against him. So the angel of Yahuwah was telling Hagar, that you're going to bear a son, you're going to call his name Ishmael, because Yahuwah have heard thy affliction. Now, I want you to bear in mind the reason that he's talking to her, and he says because he had heard her affliction and spoke of the character of Ishmael. Now, I'm going to try to show you the exact same thing concerning Israel, so that you can see that, Israel is a type of Ishmael. All right? Everybody still with me? Yeah. You may need to put your rubber boots on for this part because we may go a little deep, So I don't want nobody to drown. So if there's something that you don't understand, just put it on the shelf, and come talk to me later, and we'll see if we can't get it straightened out. Amen? Amen. All right, let me have my next reader read Exodus 3, 4 through 10, please.
And when Yahweh saw that he turned aside to see, Elohim said unto him out of the midst of the bush, and said, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here am I. And he said, Draw not nigh hither, put off thy shoes from off thy feet, from the place whereupon thou standest is holy ground. Moreover, he said, I am the Elohim of thy father, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Isaac, and the Elohim of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon Elohim. And Yahweh said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people which are in Egypt, and have heard their cry by reason of their taskmasters, for I know their sorrows. And I am come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of that land unto a good land, and a large, and unto a land flowing with milk and honey, unto the place of the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites. Now therefore, behold, the cry of the children of Israel is come unto me, and I have also seen the oppression wherewith the Egyptians oppressed them. Come now therefore, and I will send thee unto Pharaoh, that thou mayest bring forth my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt.
Hallelujah. Okay, so here it is. We see that it says, when y'all seen that Moshe had turned aside, he began to talk to him. And he says, it says, Yahuwah said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people, which are in Mitzrayim. I have heard their cry by reason of their taskmasters. And I want you to just bear witness that, this is the same thing that happened unto the mother of Ishmael. Hagar. It says, the angel said, Behold, thou art with child, and shall bear a son, and shall call his name Ishmael, because Yahuwah hath heard thy affliction. And so we see that here in Exodus 3, the reason that Yah was making contact is because he had seen and heard the affliction of Israel. Amen? So also verse 9 says, Now therefore, behold, the cry of the children of Israel is come unto me. See, he had heard the cry of the children of Israel. He said, It has come unto me. And I have also seen the oppression wherewith the Egyptians oppressed them. Come now, therefore, for this reason. Come now, therefore, for this reason, because I've seen the affliction, I've heard their cry. This is the reason, therefore, I will send thee unto Pharaoh. So I want you to understand why he was sent. It was because Yah had heard their affliction. He had seen the oppression. The same reason that he came to Hagar, because he had heard her affliction. Amen. All right, so Genesis 16, 14 and 15 says, Wherefore the well was called Be'er La-I-Roi. Behold, it is between Kadesh and Bered. Now we spoke about Kadesh meaning the quasi-holiness, and Bered speaking of judgment. Amen. Okay, now I want to try to show you the spiritual aspect of Israel and how they was at that same place. Okay, now Genesis 16, 15, it says, And Hagar bare Abram a son, and Abram called his son's name, which Hagar bare, Ishmael. And so here it is. We're looking at this, and let us see if we can't find Israel in the same predicament. Let me have my next reader read Numbers 14, 27 through 29, please. And also Numbers 20, 11 through 13.
How long shall I bear with this evil congregation, which murmur against me? I have heard the murmurings of the children of Israel, which they murmur against me. Say unto them, As truly as I live, saith Yahuwah, as ye have spoken in mine ears, so will I do to you. Your carcasses shall fall in the wilderness, and all that were numbered of you, according to your whole number, from 20 years old and upward, have murmured against me. Numbers 20, verse 11. And Moses lifted up his hand, and with his rod he smote the rock twice, and the water came out abundantly, and the congregation drank, and their beasts also. And Yahuwah spake unto Moses and Aaron, Because ye believe me not, to sanctify me in the eyes of the children of Israel, Therefore you shall not bring this congregation into the land which I have given them. This is the water of Meribah, because the children of Israel strove with Yahuwah, and he was sanctified in them.
Hallelujah. Okay, so here it is, what I want you to see. I want you to see that Israel, first of all, you need to know that Numbers 14, the passage in Numbers 14, 27 through 29, as well as, this passage in Numbers 20, 11 through 13, both took place at Kadesh. They both take place at Kadesh. Numbers 14, 27, speaks of Yah hearing the murmurings of the children of Israel, which they murmured against him. Now, remember that Ishmael, his name means heard of Elohim. Now, sometimes you can be heard of Elohim and it could be to your good. But sometimes you can be heard of Elohim and it could be to your detriment. Amen? And we see this is one of the times that Ishmael, or Israel, I should say, was heard of Elohim and it was to their detriment. Amen? Now, he says, your carcasses shall fall in this wilderness, and all that were numbered of you, according to your whole number, from 20 years old and upward, which have murmured against me. Now, we're talking about 600,000 plus women and children. Plus women, not the children. And 600,000 plus women. So we're talking no less than 1.2 million. Amen? That's a lot of people. I would say that qualifies as judgment or bered. So here it is. We see Kadesh. We see a quasi-holiness. They were walking with Elohim, but they looked like they were holy. They were kind of acting like they were holy. Only thing is, they weren't really holy. Amen? And that's an important lesson for each and every one of us, because you can walk this thing and you can look like you holy and you can act like you holy, but that don't make you holy.
That's right.
Amen? See, to be holy means to be set apart unto Yah, not just set apart. Did you catch that? Some people set themselves apart, but they don't set themselves apart unto Yah. To be holy unto Yah is to be set apart unto Yah. So that means you're doing his will, way, and purposes, not your own. You're doing his will, way, and purposes, not your employers. Hello, somebody. Okay, so Numbers 20 also took place in Kadesh. And this is when they came up against Yah again at Meribah, and Moshe and Aaron got out of line. Moshe struck the rock twice. He brought water from a rock, but he did it incorrectly. See, I want you to know for a certainty. See, because a lot of people, they try to do this thing, and they want to do it their way. You can't do Yah your way. You have to do Yah his way. He's an L of specificity, and if you don't do it the way he prescribed, then he's not going to accept it. It's not Burger King. You cannot have it your way. You have to take it just the way it comes. And so, this is a very important lesson, for all of us to learn, so that we don't be like natural Israel. We don't be walking around thinking we holy. We don't be walking around acting like we holy when really internally we happy heathens. Just because it looked like we come in and we keeping the Sabbath and we're using the sacred name, and you may be wearing fringes hanging off your clothes, and you're doing all these things, and you're looking a certain way and you're sounding a certain way and you're using a little Hebrew. That don't make you holy. I just want you to know, don't find yourself at Kadesh, a place of quasi-holiness, a place where you're looking and sounding and acting to others like you're holy, but Yah is looking at you and saying, you're filthy, you're dirty, you're unclean. Because if you find yourself there, then know that Bered is just ahead. Judgment is just ahead. And this is what Israel found out. Even Moshe wasn't allowed to go into the promised land. Amen. Because he wanted to do it his way. Yah said, speak to the rock. He want to strike the rock. He didn't strike it once. He struck it twice. See, you can't do it your way. So that's very important to understand. So I want you to be able to see that, Israel did truly go to Kadesh, and they was between Kadesh and Hared. In fact, they was here, when they got the judgment that they would have to. It was because this is the place where they received the judgment that they had to die in the wilderness. This was the place where Moses received the judgment that he won't be able to go into the promised land either. He was going to die in the wilderness too. So I pray that you can see that Israel was at Kadesh Bered, even as, he was when he was in the womb right there, with Hagar. All right, so now we're going to take a look at the second covenant. What man, commonly today referred to as the new covenant. New covenant, amen. All right, so Genesis 17, 9 through 16. We read this already, so I'm not going to read over it again. I'm just going to say, speak to the highlights. In verse 9, it says, and Elohim said unto Abraham, thou shalt keep my covenant. Now, do you remember who the first covenant was made with? It was Abram, right? Can you see that the second covenant is made with Abraham? The first covenant was made with the exalted father, but the second covenant was made with the father of many nations. Amen? So it's real important that you see that. Because with a name change also comes a nature change. A change of nature. Amen? Okay, so your nature speaks to your character, your authority, your reputation that's in the earth. Okay, so it says, and Elohim said unto Abraham, thou shalt keep my covenant. This is my covenant, which ye shall keep between me and you, and thy seed after thee, every man child among you shall be circumcised. And it goes on, and it talks about this covenant that he's going to make, that he makes with Abraham. So the first covenant was made with Abram and Hagar, but when we look in Genesis 17, 9 through 16, we see that the second covenant was made with Abraham and with Sarah. When we jump down to Genesis 17, 15, it says, and Elohim said unto Abraham, as for Sarai, thy wife, thou shalt not call her name Sarai, but Sarah shall be her name. See, notice that the covenant wasn't made with Sarai, but made with Sarah. And he said, I will bless her, and I will give thee a son also of her. Yea, I will bless her, and she shall be a mother of nations. So now we have a father of nations, and we have a mother of nations. Amen? So the first covenant was made with Hagar. Hagar name means a sojourner. It means an ensnarer. But here it is, Sarah name means a queen. And so even though Hagar was given unto the exalted father, her child was a wild man. Her child dwelt between quasi-holiness and judgment. Even as Israel dwelt between quasi-holiness and judgment. They just couldn't get it right. We don't want to be like Israel. We don't want to be those who just can't get right. We want to be like spiritual Israel, like Yahshua, the ones who got it right. Amen? So Abraham and Sarah, they're going to have a child. And this covenant is made with them. And so I want you to be able to see that, that there were in fact two totally different covenants that was made during this time. One with Abram and one with Abraham. It's important that you see that. Now, it keeps talking about in this passage about not only to Abraham and Sarah, but also to their seed. Galatians 3:16 teaches us, it says, now to Abraham and his seed were the promises made. He said, now, notice it didn't say now to Abram. It says now to Abraham. Amen? So we know what covenant that is speaking of. Amen? And what's not speaking to the one that was to Abram and Hagar is speaking about the one that's to Abraham. And his seed were the promises made. He saith not unto seeds as many, but as of one, and to thy seed, which is Messiah. So now we know who that seed is. Amen. We know that that seed is Messiah. Amen. Scripture has told us, has showed us that that seed that was being spoken of by Yahuwah Elohim is Mashiach, is Messiah. Amen. All right, so now that we have that understanding, let's move forward, so that we can see this new covenant. Luke 22:14 through 20, it says, and when the hour was come, he sat down, and the 12 apostles with him. You see, he has 12 too. Can you see that? You know, Israel isn't the only one with 12. You know, Yahshua had 12 too. You know, and it says, and he said unto them, with desire I have desired to eat this Passover with you before I suffer. For I say unto you, I will not any more eat thereof until it be fulfilled in the kingdom of Elohim. And he took the cup and he gave thanks and said, take this and divide it among yourselves. For I say unto you, I will not drink of the fruit of the vine until the kingdom of Elohim shall come. And he took the bread and gave thanks and brake it and gave unto them, saying, this is my body, which is given for you. This do in remembrance of me. Likewise also the cup after the supper, saying, this cup is the new covenant in my blood, which is shed for you. So what I'm trying to point out to you is that those of us that are in Yahshua are a part of this new covenant. Okay? Rather than the old covenant made with Abram and Hagar, they're a part of this new covenant made with Yahshua and his bride. Amen? Amen. You know, and so this is really important to understand. You know, because if you don't understand this, you're gonna be lost. You know, now we know that this covenant had an oath or a sign which spoke to circumcision for those who entered into it. Amen. You know, see, but what I want you to know is that Israel, natural Israel was just that, natural Israel, and that covenant was given to them, and it was a fleshly covenant, you know, but this one in Yahshua is a spiritual covenant. You know, and this is why the Messiah says that you must be fathered from above. You must become a spiritual being. This is why Scripture tells us that we must be led by the Ruach, because we are Ruach. This is why it says that, you know, that we fight not against flesh and blood, you know, because we're not flesh and blood. Right. You know, if you've been fathered from above, then you're a spiritual being. Amen? Amen. You know, and so we have a spiritual circumcision. Amen? You know, Romans 2:28 and 29 says, for he is not a Yahudim, he is not a Jew, which is one outwardly. Neither is that circumcision which is outward in the flesh, but he that is a Yahudim or a Jew, which is one inwardly. And the circumcision is that of the heart in the Ruach, and not in the letter, whose praise is not of men, but of Elohim. Amen? Amen. You know, so I pray that you can see the what's going on here. You know, we have two covenants. You know, they look very similar. They're both married to the exalted Father, or the Father of many nations, or the Most High, if you prefer. You know, they're called Hagar and Sarah. It's, you know, and so this is why we see in Galatians where Paul, he expounds on this and helps us to see this. In Galatians 4:22 through 26, it says, for it is written that Abraham had two sons, the one by a bondmaid and the other by a free woman. But he who was of the bondwoman was born after the flesh, but he of the free woman was by promise. Which things are an allegory, for these are the two covenants. The one from the Mount Sinai, which gendereth to bondage, which is Hagar. For this Hagar is Mount Sinai in Arabia, and answereth to Jerusalem, which now is, and is in bondage with her children. But Jerusalem, which is above, is free. And this is the mother of us all. See, you have to understand, you have to be able to see that this new covenant is a new covenant that is a spiritual covenant, you know, and our mother is New Jerusalem, which is the mother of us all. Amen? Amen. You know, so hereby we learn that Hagar, the old covenant of Moshe, and Mount Sinai, which where we get Torah, you know, that spoke to the covenant that was with Abram and Hagar. But Sarah, the renewed covenant of Yahushua and New Jerusalem, and Yahushua's commandments, you know, was of promise. Even as the Messiah, even as Isaac, was promised to come even before he came. Amen? You know, he was also of promise. You know, he was, even before he came, it was prophesied that he would come. He was promised to come. You know, Galatians 4:28 through 31. Now we, brethren, as Isaac was, are the children of promise. See, because those, you know, we, even as Isaac was, also in Yahshua, are children of promise, that we will be fathered from above, i.e. spiritual sons and daughters of Elohim. Amen? You know, verse 29, but as then he that was born after the flesh persecuted him that was born after the Ruach, even so it is now. You know, this is why they came up against our Messiah. This is why they wanted to crucify him, because they were born after the flesh. This is why your flesh, you know, fights against the spirit that's within you. This is why your flesh fights against that spiritual being that is within you. This is why those of wickedness will always persecute those of righteousness. Verse 30, nevertheless, what saith the scripture? Cast out the bondwoman and her son. For the son of the bondwoman shall not be heir with the son of the free woman. Did you catch that? Yeah. Cast her out. She shall not be heir with the son of the free woman. So then, brethren, we are not the children of the bondwoman, but of the free. You know, so if we're children of the free, then let us stop walking in the flesh and doing the lust of the flesh. Amen? Yeah, that's right. If you don't know what the lust of the flesh, then take a look at Galatians 19. Galatians 5, 19 through about 21. You know, if you're doing any of that, you're still in the flesh. Now, Matthew 22, 2 through 10. You know, I put this here so that you can see that that bondwoman and her son was cast out by our Messiah. You know, it reads, it says, the kingdom of heaven is like unto a certain king, which made a marriage for his son, and sent forth his servants to call them that were bidden to the wedding, and they would not come. Again, he sent forth other servants, saying, tell them which are bidden, behold, I have prepared my dinner, my oxen and my fatlings are killed, and all things are ready. Come unto the marriage. But they made light of it, and they went their ways, one to his farm, another to his merchandise. And the remnant took his servants, and entreated them spitefully, and slew them. But when the king heard thereof, he was wroth, and he sent forth his armies, and destroyed those murderers, and burnt up their city. Then saith he to his servants, the wedding is ready, but they which were bidden were not worthy. He's saying today, the wedding is ready, but they which were bidden were not worthy. Go ye therefore into the highways, and as many as ye shall find, bid to the marriage. So those servants went out into the highways, and they gathered together as many as they found, both bad and good. Both bad and good. Both bad and good. Stop trying to pull the tares out. That's not your job. Both bad and good. And the wedding was furnished with guests. Okay, so I want you to see that truly the bondwoman has been cast out. Truly, the fleshly Israel will not be heir with the spiritual Israel. You have to be one or the other. You know, you can't be walking in the flesh and in the spirit. Amen. You know, that's an oxymoron. It's the only one or the other. You know, now, it said in verse 7, it says, but when the king heard thereof, he was wroth and sent forth his armies and destroyed those murderers and burnt up their city. Is this not exactly what happened to Israel, to Jerusalem? This is exactly what happened. He destroyed those murderers who murdered him and his apostles and burnt up their city, did he not? Yes. You know, history has shown that for that to be the case. You know, and we have Joshua 5, 4 through 6. My next reader, please.
And this is the cause why Joshua did circumcise all the people that came out of Egypt that were males, even all the men of war, died in the wilderness by the way, after they came out of Egypt. Now all the people that came out were circumcised, but all the people that were born in the wilderness by the way, as they came forth out of Egypt, them they had not circumcised. For the children of Israel walked 40 years in the wilderness, till all the people that were men of war, which came out of Egypt, were consumed, because they obeyed not the voice of Yahuwah, unto whom Yahuwah swore that he would not show them the land which Yahuwah swore unto their fathers that he would give us, a land that floweth with milk and honey. Go on.
Yes, please.
Because all those men which have seen my glory and my miracles, which I did in Egypt and in the wilderness, and have tempted me now these 10 times, and have not hearkened to my voice, surely they shall not see the land which I swore unto their fathers, neither shall any of them that provoked me see it.
Hallelujah. Now I pray you can see within these passages that Ishmael which dwelt in the presence of his brethren as prophesied. As we can see, Israel truly did dwell, and as a type of Ishmael, truly did dwell with his brothers, even as it was prophesied. You know, and which he was from Egypt. You know, Hagar was from Egypt, so his brethren, speaking of those in Egypt, they were there. You know, this did transpire even as prophesied. You know, and they received Yah's covenant of flesh. You know, we see that as well. And they were circumcised while in rebellion. You know, so, you know, even as a rebellious people, they were circumcised, and they were truly a wild man when they came into the land, who was against every man. When they came into the land, they was against every man. Yah told them, you know, hey, everybody you see, you know, they got to go. You know, when you come into the land, everybody in there, you have to go. So they were against every man, and every man was against them. Amen? You know, I pray that you can see that this truly transpired. You know, that Israel, natural Israel, is a type of Ishmael. Take note that Ishmael is the seed of Abram and is included in the promises of Elohim, and was also included in Yah's everlasting covenant concerning his promised seed. Hence, he was circumcised and bore the sign of the covenant, yet and still he isn't that promised seed. No more than his counterpart Israel. You know, they're not that promised seed either. Yahshua is. You know, they did come out of Egypt as was promised, as the promised seed, and was allowed to receive the sign of the everlasting covenant of Yahuwah. That is the Sabbath. You know, but it's the spiritual people that's going to go into New Jerusalem. It's the spiritual people that are the true children of New Jerusalem. You know, that represents that covenant that was given to Sarah. Exodus 31:12-14, and Yahuwah spake unto Moshe, saying, Speak thou also unto the children of Israel, saying, Verily my Sabbaths ye shall keep. For it is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, that ye may know that I am Yahuwah, that doeth sanctify you. Ye shall keep the Sabbath, therefore, for it is holy unto you. Everyone that defileth it shall surely be put to death. For whosoever doeth any work therein, that soul shall be cut off from among his people. Yes, Israel was allowed to enter into everlasting covenant, even as Ishmael was allowed to enter into covenant when he was 13 in rebellion. They both were rebellious. And eventually, Ishmael and the promised seed had to be separated. And it's no different with us. Rather, if you're looking at it corporately, and you see that that the promised seed had to be separated from natural Israel, which happened through the course of history. Or if you look at it individually, you know, the spirit man within you one day is going to have to be separated from the flesh man. You know, either way you look at it, they has to be separated. Hence, we likewise, with the house of Yaakov, that was born in bondage, which we all were born into these flesh bodies, which are a type of bondage. And the children of Israel that was born in the wilderness, we're born into a spiritual wilderness. It's a parallel. It's the same thing. If you can see the one, you should be able to see the other. It's a parallel. The same thing that happened is going to happen again. Just like King Solomon says, there's nothing new under the sun. Yah has truly told the end from the beginning. So I pray that you're able to see that he's not doing a new thing. He's doing the same old thing, and the same old thing is going to happen. You have tomorrow's newspaper in your lap. All you got to do is read and see what's going to happen. You're taking a final exam, an open book final exam. There's no reason anyone should flunk.
That's right.
Because you have all the answers in front of you. All you have to do is get in there and search for it. That's all I have for you today. Pray it was a blessing.
Hallelujah.